Humans of the cardboard. It's about that time. We are on the cusp of yet another Yu-Gi-Oh ban list. These are always really exciting times, even when we're still in a good format. They're obviously a little bit more exciting when we're in a rough format, and the excitement of this ban list could fix the game and get everybody excited again. Obviously, there's a little more hype there, but still, they can do some cleaning up. They can hit some small things in the format that need some adjusting, and even release some stuff. And we won't talk about releasing stuff in this video, but we are going to focus on the stuff they can do to at least clean up a couple of annoying things in the current format. So let's take a look here. Actually, when I went and I looked through a lot of the cards that people might complain about in the modern format, I really ended up on not that many generic cards. There's some generic cards that are part of the best decks in the game currently, and those cards we'll talk about, but there's not a ton of stuff out there. Like, you know what I mean? In formats past, I'd talk about, you know, D barrier and stuff like that. There's not, and D barrier is not very good in this format. And so we just find ourselves in a position where I'm like, not totally certain. Like, if there's anything generically that I'm like, gotta get this out of here, aside from like the fringe generic stuff we'll talk about here. So it's interesting. I think there's 4 archetypes we need to look at. The first one I want to look at is Rysol. This one is tough. This one's tough to see, especially because of Malice as well. They both came out of the deck build pack that is not even, or just barely 3 months old. Like it is very, very new, very, very fresh, really. And I don't expect them to actually hit any in archetype cards, but I do think they could hit some generic cards around these archetypes to kind of still limit them and also promote newer products. We'll talk about that. So the one card I think that is possible to get hit is X Rysol. This is the first card that got hit in the OCG. I actually don't think it'll get hit this time around. 3 months is just too soon for them to go after a $20 card, $20+ card in the archetype. And honestly, the best card other than Detonator in the extra deck. Like, this card is the best card in the main deck. It's the best starter because it doesn't take your normal summon. It gets you one of your Exceeds in rotation into the grave, whether it's Twins of the Eclipse or Aggregator. That's really important. And it just has really good application going second. It's a crazy engine card. Like, even just the ability to like play into a board while also getting a ton of value at the same time is crazy. This card's nuts. But I don't think they'll hit it just yet. So I would leave him alone for now. I do think it's possible we see something like Bonfire get hit. This is already the second top tier, like best deck in the game we've seen since Bonfire got printed, getting abused in. And on top of that, 7th Tachyon right around the corner. And I'll be honest, if Konami doesn't hit Bonfire or X or some kind of consistency hit on Rysol, I think that'll hurt a good bit of the value on 7th Tachyon. I think a lot less players will be interested. If you're telling me like, oh, you just keep the same consistency you've had, they'll be like, oh, my consistency's been fine. If you're telling me you're cutting 2 more copies of Bonfire, then I might be like, ooh, I might need 7th Tachyon now to kind of make up for what I'm losing there. But right now, they might, if you leave Bonfire at 3, a lot of those players may not even be that interested in 7th Tachyon. They still might, but not everyone. And so you're hurting that. Now, I don't love it from a business standpoint of like forcing people into buying 7th Tachyon that way, but at the same time, it would also give like a small nerf to the deck because the deck would still have consistency, but they have to do it now more often in a way where they're going -1. So just to even get their starter to hand, they have to go -1 because Tachyon puts a card from hand back into the deck when it searches. So I think that's quite likely. Not to mention, I don't hate the idea. Like, I'm okay with Rhoda cards for types, right? Rhoda itself, Bonfire, Signet Mining. I don't even hate the idea of all of them being at 1. That way, some of these types have 1 bonus awesome consistency card that you can add in, but like not necessarily a 3 of, right? So I'm actually okay with this. But this is the second time a Pyro deck's come through and made Bonfire nasty. And I think it's totally possible that this card gets hit to 1 on this list to give them a small consistency hit and push Tachyon/Ascension even harder. And the last card for Rysol that I think is relevant is Dweller. It's not the only deck that can abuse Dweller, but yeah, Dweller's just been one of those cards. We haven't had a format since really like tier format where it's even been that big of a deal for the most part. But when this card is really good, it sucks. It just sucks. it's just a lingering floodgate. We have so many lingering floodgates on the ban list. This card is no different. It should be on there, and I hope it is. I just think it makes sense for this to be on here at this point. Now, I'm not just saying that because I'm a Crystron player, but I am saying it because I'm a Crystron player. And and yeah, I think this one just makes a lot of sense. This would force them. It doesn't like take away what they can do. It just takes away this option, so they can still make an additional rank 4. So whether they go for Traptrix Rafflesia or Giant Hand or whatever other rank 4 that's just like a decent eruption next to Detonator, that can just make them just more fun to play around instead of just like a floodgate option, right? So this was one I really like the idea of, to just make Rysol more interactive instead of turn off a half to 3/4 of your deck with one card. So I like that. So that's it for Rysol. Moving on to Malice. Malice I have a bunch of cards for because I'm really not sure how they would want to go on this one. I think it's worth mentioning Allure of Darkness. Actually, you know what? Let's actually start with White Binder. I don't think White Binder will get hit. Um, but I think down the line, I think like 2-3 ban lists down the line, this may be the way Konami like finalizes axing Malice if it stays in tier 1 for like that long and people are just tired of it. I think White Binder may be the route they go. Wouldn't entirely kill the deck because the deck obviously has Hearts of Cryptor and Red Ransom, and obviously can still just be a good link spam deck. But this is the card that puts them over the top overall. So right now I think they're safe. I don't think any actual similar to Rysol. I don't think they'll hit any other actual Malice cards here. They have support coming. They may just want to do some cleanup duty on them. That stuff for stuff that's even outside of their archetype to mess with. Another one's Shifter. I know a lot of people would love to see Shifter on this list. I'd actually like to see it as well. I still don't think they're going to do it though. This is like the only deck that's really playing it right now, and a lot of players still opting not to play it. They could hit it. I'd like them to hit it. If they hit it to 1, it may even kill this card's viability, because unless your deck just inherently does not care about it whatsoever, I don't even think people are going to want to play a 1 of if they have to make like other deck building concessions just to fit a 1 of in that you're not going to see as often. It's only good in your starting 5 cards in hand. I'm just not sure. So I'd like to see it go to 1. I just don't think they will at this point. I just don't have faith in that. So my prediction would be no. I'd like to see it go to 1 or 2 just to, minimize its impact consistently on the format. But yeah. Allure of Darkness, another interesting one. This would be kind of in line with Bonfire. This deck is going to get more consistency in the form of the new Ad Ignister cards. And this card is limited in the OCG, probably because it's partially... because it's not once per turn. And when you combine it with stuff like Thunder Dragon or Malice, a dark deck that wants to be banished, this card can steamroll out of control really, really quickly. So I actually like the idea of this getting hit to 1. I'm not sure if they will. I'm going to put it in prediction because I think they might do a similar route on both of these, where like both of these decks are getting consistency boosts very soon. And so these really the best versions of their consistency can go away because they're getting replaced with maybe just a slightly worse version. Not worse, but like, yeah, I guess they're a little bit worse, right? Overall. So I think I'd like seeing both of these go to 1. That way it kind of forces Malice players to rely more on the new Ad Ignister cards. And obviously Bonfire with Tachyon, same idea. I think that could work out pretty cool. Next one I would say is Nightmare Griffin. I'd like to see this card go. I mean, it's literally the same thing as Dweller. It's just another Floodgate monster. It's super generic Floodgate monster that when this card is relevant, when this card is seeing play, it sucks. And I think the one difference now is Abawaku. Now that Abawaku is here, we saw them with Jowgen preemptively ban Jowgen so that way Abawaku or Branded couldn't really abuse Jowgen like that. But with Abawaku, Griffin is nasty. Griffin is so nasty because you can even use it as material to make it like fairly efficiently, and you're just going to get it back pretty free for like 1 card in hand basically. And that's really, really scary. It's just when this card's in the format, it just sucks. This card is so annoying to play against. It just shouldn't be, right? Skill Drain is on the ban list for good reason, and this card's a more accessible Skill Drain basically because your engine gets it. So I'd love to see this go. I think this is just another Floodgate that would make a lot of sense. And the last one, the low-key one, is kind of Link Decoder. A lot of people think that this card is kind of like the icing on the cake for the deck, where like a lot of situations for Malice get significantly worse because of this card. And I'll be honest, like this card's broken. Like for the fact that you just get to make this for free in a cyber stack that ever like just is a link spam deck, this card is just a bonus link material for no reason, right? You if this is banned, they'll make Lingaribo in those scenarios. Right? And they just won't get an additional bond. They get a little bit of utility with handling trap cards situationally, but that's basically it. So again, this is another card that I actually like the idea of it getting hit because the other thing too is with the new Link, he's a Link 5, I think, coming out, basically any two Cybers bodies is full combo. Whereas without this, it forces you to have like an extra card basically or an extra body to get to. Right? Because if you can make room for the transcode, the G Golem at Ignister, it's very, very easy. Actually, you don't even need G Golem. You just need Splash Mage, this card, and transcode. And you can get right up into the new Act Code Talker really, really quickly and easily off of basically the ability to put any two Cybers bodies on the field. And that's insanely strong. I'm really actually scared of that. It's crazy. But yeah, I could see this card getting hit. I want it to get hit. I'm just not sure that they will. Again, I think it's just a little bit too soon. I think we're gonna have to go through next format. With the new Malice cards coming out in Alliance Insight, I like the idea of Griffin being banned, so they're not abusing that. They can still have the crazy bonus link material, but I think take away Griffin for them and alert a one, and I think they're still going to be a really scary deck, but I think that stuff is like fair nerfs on non-actual Malice cards that I think will be okay. Next engine, Fiend Smith. What do we see here? There's two options, really. You have Engraver, and you have Moon of the Closed Heaven. My overall guess is that they're not going to touch Fiend Smith whatsoever. I actually think, at least for now, the main difference between Fiend Smith and Adventure being like really good generic engines is that any deck can access this engine because they can just make a generic link 2 and get into the Fiend Smith stuff. Whereas with the Adventure engine, it was you still had to hard draw it. So like I guess there's a world where this does get hit and they say Fiend Smith engine is still really good as a generic engine, but now you have to hard open the Fiend Smith stuff to use it. You can't just send two of your generic bodies into this, right? That's definitely a big part of that. So my guess is it's going to be closer to Adventure though, like a power crept version, obviously, and they're not going to touch it. It already feels like this engine is solid, not broken by any means. So I already think the power creep's been coming on this, and it's obviously going to be good, but I don't think it's to the level of like actually terrifying people. It doesn't make an actual Omni Negate from in terms of like nib and stuff, which was a big deal with Adventure at the time. But it does still have good value on it. And then the last one I want to talk about is Mermail. There's a couple things they could do with Mermail. One thing is Moulin Glacier, but I don't think they will. He'll get banned at some point. He just has to, I believe. The problem is the duelist who made it the farthest in YCS Birmingham, top 4, I believe, wasn't even on Moulin Glacier. He was on a barrier statue of the Torrent build, which is crazy to me. And that just shows like the overall insanity of Mermail. And the other card I would mention here is Coelacanth. Now, I don't think they're going to hit these because, again, they just got support, right? So it's hard to hit a deck this soon after support. I think these cards are on watch. I guess it's possible the barrier statue gets hit because that's just like straight up suck, right? Right. Actually, that's my prediction. We have barrier statue of the Stormwinds banned. I think barrier statue of the Torrent could get hit here. And then if they leave these two alone. But Coelacanth, I think, is on watch. The lines they do with this card to just get a ton of free link material bodies is crazy. So I could see this card getting hit. They'd still be able to place it with another 7. They're able to just cheat out of the deck, but they wouldn't they wouldn't have the overall output of this card. And Moulin Glacier at some point. At some point its time is going to come. They're going to be tired of Moulin Glacier being able to just guarantee a hand rip for 2 or 3 and still multiple interruptions after that. It's just too much. So I think they'll leave these alone for now. I think Torrent can go and it won't feel like that much of a turnoff if they lose it. I also think like Sharks potentially getting access to Torrent soon is like rough. I think even stun decks with Tachyon because they just won't use the X check. They can just use it to search like barrier statues, right? Like that's also worth mentioning, that they like stun decks are just getting more consistent for stuff like this. So taking away their options with this guy also doesn't hurt there. So there you go. That's my overall ban list prediction. Not a big one, but this is just the hits. Two consistency hits to Rysol and Malice, two floodgate hits to Rysol and Malice, and a bonus one for uh, obviously Mermail, Atlantean at the same time, and this will hit some other stuff, but yeah, nothing huge. And I think maybe the rest of this ban list will be filled up with more unhits that actually become more interesting. And we'll talk about that in the next video. There's a lot of cards that I think could be really spicy there, where even though this stuff isn't as hype in terms of changing the format that much, we could still actually get some new new decks back to the game with some unhits that actually do become very, very interesting. So there you go. Those are my thoughts overall. Sorry if it was a little long-winded and over-explained, but I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this down below. Where do you land on this list? How accurate do you think this is? I feel like it's so easy to get giddy and put too many cards on the ban list. So I'm trying to learn from my mistakes in the past. I've made so many of these videos, and I feel like I always get giddy and I go, perfect scenario, all of these cards get hit. But if we're talking prediction, that's why I'm going a little bit lighter here. So I am holding off on Link Decoder. So I'm holding off on Shifter and a Fiend Smith hit and another, Mermail hit and X. You know what I mean? Like I'm holding off on these because I'm trying to learn from my mistakes. And this feels more accurate to where Konami has been the last couple years in terms of ban lists. So let me know your thoughts down below. Would you be happy with a ban list like this that doesn't crucify anything yet? And how accurate do you think it'll be? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts down below. But I'm out here for today. Thank you so much for watching as always, guys. I'll see you in the next video. We'll be talking unhits, so stay tuned for that. And I'll see you in that one. Peace.